Bonjour, Kinamagan and Ireland Indigenous, and welcome to today's writing lesson. Today's topic, adding dialogue to your narrative. All right, let's begin by looking back at the standard, W53B. Use narrative techniques such as dialogue, description, and pacing to develop experiences and events or show the responses of characters to situations. I'm going to begin by showing you an intro video. I do not own the rights to this video. It was via YouTube. Grammar for Kids is the name, and you can see that there. There are a few spots where it asks you to pause the video. You are invited to pause the video and make some decisions on where you would place things. It's just asking for a comma. You could probably do that in your head. It's asking you to write something. Feel free to do that pause and go from there. We'll likely do that pause in the physical classroom as well. Once we are done with that point, you will be using your narratives that we worked on in our previous narrative session, whether that be in the via Google Doc or via paper copy. Well, let's begin first by punctuating dialogue part 1. That's the part we're going to start with.
The Grammar for Kids, Chapter 4, Punctuating Dialogue, Part 1. What is a dialogue? A dialogue is a conversation between two characters. A dialogue can tell a story, explain a character's reaction, or help the reader understand what the main character is thinking. A dialogue contains what the character said and the dialogue tag. The sentence that the character says begins and ends with quotation marks. In the sentence below, "Do you like cake?" Tina asked. "Do you like cake" is the sentence that Tina says, and "Tina asked" is the dialogue tag. In a dialogue, quotation marks belong before the first word and after the final word that the character says. When you think of quotation marks, think of a door that opens and closes. The opening quotation mark opens the dialogue and begins the spoken sentence. In the sentence below, "The city looks beautiful at night," said Jean, the opening quotation mark goes before the word "the," since "the" is the first word of the spoken sentence. The closing quotation mark closes the sentence and lets the reader know that the spoken sentence is complete. In the sentence below, "The city looks beautiful at night," said Jean, the closing quotation mark goes after "night," the final word that Jean says. Now it's your turn. Pause the video and add quotation marks before and after the following character dialogue sentences.
Feel free to pause the video and write this out, or at least add sentences in your head.
Here are the correct responses. In a dialogue, the first letter of the first word is capitalized. In the sentence below, "Don't you love baking cupcakes?" asked Karen. The D in "don't" is capitalized because "don't" is the first word that Karen says. Now it's your turn. Pause the video and capitalize the first letter of each character dialogue.
You can do this in your head.
Here are the correct responses. The dialogue tag tells the reader who is speaking and how they are speaking. In the sentence below, "I really like playing fetch," barked Rover. The dialogue tag is barked Rover. Barked is how Rover spoke, and Rover is the who, or in this case, what spoke. The comma separates the spoken words from the dialogue tag. In the sentence below, "I had a great time at the party," said Jessica. The comma separates the spoken words from the dialogue tag. The position of the comma depends on where the dialogue tag is in the sentence. Think of the comma as a separator. If the dialogue tag comes after the spoken words, the comma belongs right before the closing quotation mark. If the dialogue tag comes before the spoken words, the comma belongs after the dialogue tag to separate the spoken words from the dialogue tag. Now it's your turn. Pause the video and place the commas in their proper positions. Remember, the comma either goes before the dialogue tag, inside the closing quotation mark, or after the dialogue tag. Here are the correct responses. In the next chapter, we will review there, and there. Until next time.
All right, at this point, you should bring out your text and you can start putting information in or put a dialogue in. So I'm going to put it, start with quotation marks. Careful. And notice when you're asking a question or showing exclamation, you actually use your regular punctuation. If you're making a statement or giving a command, you use a comma. So now you see no, comma, question mark. Notice how punctuation is often in its own paragraph. Although it doesn't have to, you'll find it quite often. We'll put one in the middle. You start seeing. I don't want to take that suggestion there that Google Docs will give you. So run, I screamed at Tony. So you'll now see that I've entered some dialogue. Put in the dialogue that you need to tell a good story. Does it have to have a set number? No. If your story only needs 3 or 4 pieces of dialogue to be told, okay. If your story needs dozens, okay. I know a lot of times you want to get an exact number of what the teacher expects. The answer is that I don't know. You're the author of the story, so include enough to make your story easy to follow. And then I will provide feedback on it when we have first opportunity. At this point, if you use the Google Doc, open that up. If you are doing it on paper, add the dialogue maybe in one of the lines you skipped and put an arrow. You could choose to rewrite it, but not required. We'll be rewriting in an upcoming session. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. Otherwise, have a minwa gijigat, minwa, pamapi.